Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee meeting of Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Call to order at 1:01 p.m. And I'll go ahead and take roll call. Terry Majewski is here. Jan Mulder.
Here.
Andrew Christopher.
Here.
Joel Ireland.
Here.
Savannah McDonald.
Here.
Ricky Riojas.
Here.
Thank you. We're all here, all 6 of us. Item 2 is approval of the legal action report / minutes for the meeting of April 25th, 2024. Could I have a motion to approve as submitted, please?
This is Ricky. A motion to approve is submitted.
Thank you. And who will second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got Savannah. Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and call roll. Terry says aye. Jan?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Joel?
Yes.
Savannah?
Aye.
And Ricky?
Aye.
Thank you. It passes 6-0. Item 3 is Historic Preservation Zone review cases, and we review these under UDC section 5.8/TSM 9-02.0.0/Historic District Design Guidelines and the revised Secretary of Standards Guidelines. Case 3A is SD 0923-00108 at 326 East 17th Street, and this is to construct a rear yard detached ADU. It's a full review in the Armory Park Historic Preservation Zone, and it's a contributing resource, and we use the rehabilitation standard. Jody, will you provide us background, please?
Yes. So this project was reviewed by the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board on April 16th. They made a motion to recommend approval of the project as presented with the following conditions. That the windows will be wood to match those in the 2003 edition and will be inset into the openings. That the multi-panel and single pane doors shall be wood. That the 12-foot maximum height for the ADU will be waived by the development zone standards. The actual height is 14 feet 11 inches. 4, that the landscaping is not part of this design review. 5, that the chain link and corrugated fencing will be replaced by a 6-foot wrought iron fencing to match existing. 6, corrections to the plans will indicate a 11-foot 6-inch distance between the contributing structure and the ADU. 7, that the wall height is 8 foot 6 inches, I think that means to say, and the top height of the openings will be at 6 foot 8 inches. It was seconded and passed with a roll call vote of 5-0. I'll also note that there is, as it's shown on the plans, a contributing rear yard detached structure that shows up on the plans. The owner applied for and received an emergency demolition permit for that structure, and parties were notified. The building official went out and physically reviewed the structure and determined that it was what's the word I'm looking for? It was a hazard, and they allowed them to demolish that under the emergency permit process, which is allowed in the UDC. And the draftsman, Jeff, is here. Jeff, I have made you a co-host, so you are welcome to share your screen.
Perfect, thank you.
Jody, before he starts, could I ask one question about the demolition?
Do you want me to look up a code section for this? Because I'll pull it up.
Nope. So you said it was an emergency. As of this morning, it's still standing. And Armory Park met a month ago and we're meeting now. I guess that I kind of wonder about that, plus us not being notified at least. that it was an emergency demolition, but I just wondered whether even with an emergency, if it was documented.
The structure is documented, they had plans and there was photos that we took, for the documentation. We followed the language in the UDC, for notification, but even though it's standing, it could fall down, so they are allowed for the emergency demolition. The same thing, with a similar one, probably late last year with that porch that was in El Presidio. I don't know if you recall that. It was pulling away from the house and it was being supported by metal supports that were diagonal to basically keep it from collapsing. So they do have the emergency permit. It was issued. It was
Right,
and the
right.
protocol was followed.
Yeah, I just know there was one in the barrio where we went out and reviewed it in the field at the time, but mostly I was just asking about A, the emergency, B, having it documented, and C, just as a courtesy, letting us know where it is, because I flipped through the materials. I kept looking to see where the documentation was because I could see the structure in the plans and in the field. And just, it would be nice to know kind of what transpired so we're not having to guess. Thank you.
Understood.
Okay. Am I up?
You're on, go ahead.
Jan, just to kind of follow up on that, as soon as it looked like this structure was going to be no more, I went out, I took a ton of pictures. Actually part of the submittal package, I actually did elevations of what the building looks like. It's maybe not 100%, but I think the flavor of it's there. So if there was some type of record that wanted to be kept of what that structure was, or was at one point intended to be, there is documentation for it. The
Thank you,
structure,
Jeff. It's for whatever reason, that was not part of our packet, but thank
yeah,
you for
it's
doing
in
that.
the full submittal package, and it wasn't on the original ones. I know there's a couple of versions floating out there. The one that's dated, Jody help me, November something. Was that the last one we did? I think it's November
I think
something.
it's November.
Yeah, anyway, that one's got everything in it. And I didn't do a whole lot in terms of a floor plan because there's so little structure to that. I mean, as far as like walls and things like that, there's so little there, and what's there is falling apart. So I figured as long as the aesthetic is captured, that's probably the important part from an historical standpoint. And at least between that and the pictures, we can kind of piece it together if we had to. So
Thank you.
I've done these historical things before. Before I moved to Tucson, I'd been doing them for probably 10 or 15 years before I even moved here. So I'm familiar with that documentation process. So no big deal.
Thank you.
Basically, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure meeting you, Jody. Finally, we've talked on the phone a lot. The rest of you, I know Michael as well. Lo and behold, another ADU. I mean, I can't make it anything other than what it is. The goal here was to try to mimic the aesthetic of the addition that was done back in 2002. That seemed to make the most sense. Obviously, because of the historical zoning, we are going through this process. I would say the aesthetics are almost lock and step with what that addition has in terms of the stucco, as far as the inset windows, the sill material, the roof pitch, the roof type. Pretty much from top to bottom, it's pretty much the same thing. We have scaled things a little bit because it is obviously a significantly smaller structure than the main structure. We didn't want to create an aesthetical competition between the two. But at the same token, it is off of Railroad. It fronts off of Railroad. This might be helpful. Let's see. Can you see that?
I can see it.
Yeah, okay. So this little outcropping on the back corner, that's the addition in question. The rest of it is the main original house. This outline right here is the structure that's being demolished. I can't even tell really what it was. I think it was probably a garage slash barn slash storage shed. I don't really know. It's hard to tell. But anyways, the ADUs, obviously in subordination to the main structure, which is, that's the intent of these. Our access point is coming off of railroad, so we don't even have the same orientation for the front door. We're pulling separate utilities to it, and it has its own parking. And trying to give its own autonomy, but yet maintain the flavor of the property, I guess is the best way to say it. We can roll through here real quick. That's the main house. So you can see the addition here. And then that's the ADU. You can see the similarities. That is the structure that's being removed. It's basically corrugated metal and wood lap and various other things. I can't even tell what they are, but pretty straightforward project in my view, but I'm not sure what kind of lens you guys look at these things, so I'll available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Jeff, this is Terry. Before I ask other commissioners if they have questions. So these are the plans that were reviewed by the Neighborhood Advisory Board, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that they do not show any changes that they may have requested.
They don't show any changes because I have yet to receive any written documentation on what those things that Jody just listed are. I was told I was going to.
Oh,
And
yeah, it's just a question. It's not an indictment, it's just a
no,
question.
I thought I was told I was going to receive a letter saying what those comments were.
You will.
I had them written down, so if I had to recreate them, I could do that for the most part.
Well, the way things work is their input comes in, our input as plans review comes in. We're an independent review body, even
Right.
though we're interested in what they say. And then the planning director makes a decision on what conditions you will be asked to do,
Right.
so.
I had no issue with anything that they brought up, and I think every comment they brought up is gonna add character to the project. So we had no
Okay.
opposition at all with any of it.
Okay, so we'll go ahead then and start with questions. Who would like to begin?
I'll start. I just had a few. I mean, I think it's,
Go ahead.
yeah, like you mentioned, it is straightforward. Two of their comments had to do with the windows and the doors being wood, but that's already shown on the plan. So I guess I was confused as to why they would.
I
Or
think
did they just want it reiterated or something?
I think there was two things. One is a secondary comment on that was they wanted the inset look, which is
Okay.
by the fact that the main historical part of the existing house is masonry and this is wood frame. So we wouldn't be able to achieve that same, but they wanted to make sure that the windows were set on the inside of the offset was on the outside, not the inside, like a normal wood frame installed window would be, which is no problem. We just order the windows that way. That's not a big deal. The other thing was and they made a comment in the hearing, and I'm not sure where it came from. There was a time where we wanted to do vinyl windows because we believed that the windows on the addition done in 2002 were vinyl. I have since found out that they are actually Kobe and Kobe vinyl clad wood windows. And that's where the mistake came from. So Jody and I spoke about it, and since the precedent is wood windows, I've told the owners that's basically what you're going to need to do is match what they did there. So that's we adjusted that accordingly. They may have had an old set of drawings, honestly. I'm not sure where the comment came from.
The narrative we received said they were vinyl, as was the addition. So maybe that's where the confusion came.
Yeah, it was at one point in time, that's what I believed it to be, but I've since found out that that is not the case. So that was my error early on.
Okay, so definitely I think the whole business about the windows should go into a motion when we make one.
Yeah. I mean, so far, our first two comments, I think we could just reiterate.
Yeah.
Well, and then the third is just waiving the 12-foot max height because the structure is at its peak 14 something. Is that right?
1411. It
Yeah.
has to do with the way the base zoning development services department measures height and how historical measures height. That's where the discrepancy came from.
I mean, that seems fine to me, but I'll let other commissioners comment on that. And then they say that landscaping is part of the design. I mean, they have comments about fencing as well, which aren't currently on the drawings. So I guess I would say if you're proposing any sort of fencing or gates or anything like that, that probably we'd need that to be revised, and maybe that could be handled as a minor review. What do you guys
I will tell
think
you
of
what
that? Maybe in general.
the dialogue that took place was the other board was painfully aware of what this property looked like currently. And their concern was if there was going to be new development on the property, that there was a significant amount of chain link fence. Not only in the perimeter, but some of the interior fencing was chain link, and they were concerned about that staying and not maintaining the historical fabric of the wrought iron on the front of the property. And the owners and I discussed it even ahead of time. We were going to eliminate all of the chain link and replace it all with the wrought iron similar to the front. So that's why that comment came back that way. Is that if you want to put a motion on there, you can actually say specifically that all chain link fences to be removed and replaced with wrought iron. That's the language.
Okay. Can
Yeah,
you
well, that's
can you pull up a picture of the wrought iron you're proposing to match? I mean, maybe we can look at it and talk about it right now. I just didn't.
You said you were thinking of that. Is that still currently something that you're thinking of doing? Like you are gonna do it,
Are
or
going to do that.
you're
All chain link fence will be removed and replaced with wrought iron.
And that's part of the neighborhood, advisory board's motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best picture I could show you, except obviously that's not 6 feet. So it would be something similar to that, but 6 feet high.
Okay. And do you have gates too? Like there's a man gate in this one. Would that be?
There was going to be a gate from right here approximately. They want to separate the public way and the parking area from the private part of the yard. So there'll probably be a fence across here with a gate access and probably something similar on this side. And I could certainly show that on the final plans. That's no big deal.
But that would be all transparent, and
Yes.
they didn't want to see it again or review it again. They just
No, they
were
just
okay with.
their
Okay.
main focus was they want to see the chain link go away, and I agree.
Okay.
But
is that
mean-
gonna be
Go
put
ahead.
down in the same spot where the chain link fence is now? Or are you planning on moving?
They're
At all.
moving because currently, they're right now, there's a chain link. I believe, actually, there's a picture of it. Hold on. And see that corrugated, that'll probably go away and that'll be wrought iron as well. That's on the front of the main house. That's interior. Like this right here. That's one of those new fences that, in essence, it would be small. But this is looking west between the rear of the main house on this side and the ADU would be here. That would be replaced with the wrought iron. This is over on the property line, same thing there. That's the chain link that's right on the property line in the front off of Railroad. That would go away.
There's some also around the front yard that's on the side along with that's chain link.
Same thing. Yeah, if you imagine this, imagine the ADU being basically in the same place. Because I have parking in these two locations, obviously that chain link would go away. It would be replaced at some point further back so that the parking can be accessible from Railroad.
Okay, so you're gonna match the existing fencing that's at the front of the property with
We're
all
gonna
of this
try to.
new? Okay, it
Yeah,
looks
we're not-
fairly simple. It looks
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah, we're
But
not
it's
gonna do anything more
Right.
ornate than that.
But the fencing will be higher, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so commissioners, we do have the option of asking for a minor review. It seems like a lot of fencing that isn't currently shown on the plans, correct? You know, and so it's up to everyone if they want to see that or not as a minor review.
It
Yeah,
seems like, yeah. Right, sorry, go ahead, Christopher.
Yeah, I think that's probably appropriate, just given the extent of it, and since we are going to be changing heights. But it's a pretty simple fence. So could that just be included as in the landscape package, assuming landscape is coming back for a minor review? Or
Is that a requirement?
I don't know, because I wasn't sure if that's something that needs to come back or not. Do you know?
I don't think so on residential. It's just like if you were using it for screening or something, if you were trying to do something specific with it that wasn't on the plans. I mean, what is your plan for landscape?
Well, that hasn't been decided on. I know in commercial, it's part of the regular review process. I've never heard that come up in residential before. I mean,
Yeah, I
We
don't,
usually
I'm not,
don't have them unless they're installing something that's blocking the house from the street.
I think it's
Yeah,
if something's changing the streetscape.
okay.
So if it were outside the fence line, or if, like people have said, obscuring the structure and
the only
visibility.
place that it would really occur would be right in this small area here between the two parking spaces. And it would only be to just act as some type of vegetation to anchor the building. That's it.
Okay.
Nothing
I think we can probably just put language in our motion that the existing fence will match, or the new fence will match the existing fence. And I don't think a minor review is necessary unless anyone else does.
Well, it says that the wall height is, okay, so it's 6 foot wrought iron fence to match existing, fine, but then there's the wall height. And the top height of all openings will be 6 foot 8
Yeah,
inches.
can you talk about, that's a separate
Yes.
issue, right? When they say wall height, what do they mean is 8'6"? Is that
The
of the
height of the
structure?
wall- Yeah, the heights of the walls, basically the plate height of the structure.
Okay.
From finished floor to where the ceiling begins, where the roof
Well,
begins.
that's a weird
Oh,
thing on
So
the motion.
Yeah, so
why did
external.
that matter to them? They just wanted that clarified?
I guess, I don't know.
it's under the 12 foot.
Yeah,
Um,
why
Why
is
do
it?
they care?
John Burr's here, if you guys, I saw him on there, so if you want to ask him about that.
Yeah, John, what was that about?
On the plans, the site plan you're looking at right now, see, it says there's 6 feet between the two buildings. It's actually 11.6.
Correct. That's
The
an error.
wall, the wall height on the elevations and the height of the windows was not denominated, and we just wanted to clarify that. And Jeff provided that information, so we included it in the motion so that when the revised drawings go in for permitting, they are accurate.
And I will add.
Okay,
That makes sense.
Question about it.
yeah, that does make sense.
Well,
I'm not opposed to saying, like, I think ours should just say that it needs to be added to the plan, like a little more clarity.
Yeah, and it's the building wall height. It's not
Yeah.
the ADU wall height. It's not the wall, the exterior wall. That's what I'm like, what? Yeah.
Let me show you real quick.
It does make it seem like they're allowing an
Oh,
8 foot
I know
fence.
what 8 foot height fence is on this property. Okay, what they're talking about is that the 8'6" is from here to here. And the 6'8" is from here to here to that same point. So I'll just add those dimensions on here when we do the final.
Okay.
They're already shown that way, they're just not dimensioned, that's all.
Okay, so let's see. We've had questions all over the place. Savannah, were you done with yours?
I think the last one, it was just a little bit related to the elevation from the street. And I mean, I don't see any like mechanical units or anything like that. Will they be visible? What's the plan for?
We're gonna do a multi-hits, or actually a ducted mini split system. So there will be a compressor, but we will stick it over, let me get to the floor plan. Actually, this package has too many pages. The compressor will probably be back in this corner right here. The reason being is you literally will not be able to see it from the right of way at all. The only place it'll see it is the main house. And it's the most protected place to hide it.
So it's on the
This will be the
northwest corner.
northeast corner.
So, but the house
Your
is on the other
plan-
side.
Yeah, your plan.
Is this a
It looks like the
stock-
north area is wrong on this, right?
Is this a stock plan that's flipped or?
This is north. This is correct. The main house is right here.
Oh, I see. So where's so the front door is off the side by the parking?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay,
South
got
side.
it,
Railroad
okay.
is right here.
got it.
So the site plan sheet A1 actually has the north arrow in the wrong direction. Is that right?
Good call. Yes, you
Yes.
are correct.
But I think what you described is perfectly fine if we don't see it from the street, for your condensing unit. That's,
But I think it
That's
need to make a point that it's shown, because we always like to see where the.
yeah,
I'll put it on
yeah,
there.
Add that to the motion list.
yeah. And you said it's ground mounted?
Yes, but it's not a full, they're like I refer to them as a large suitcase.
Yeah.
It's not a very big unit.
Okay, are you good, Savannah?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I'm done. Thanks.
Ricky, do you want to finish up do you have other comments?
No, I think I mean, I'm usually in favor of having like the gates come through the minor view. I think just because the distance, they're not being set all in exactly the same place where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a solid plan that says exactly where the gates are going to go and what their height is.
That's fine.
That's the only that's the only comment that I have.
Okay, so we should probably add that to the motion. Andrew, did you have anything else?
Yeah, the only additional thing I had was looking at the existing house and the addition. It looks like those are both built up off the ground, and they have a crawl space underneath them, which gives a more defined presence to the foundation. It like bumps out from the walls a bit, and the house sits a bit higher. So this is I'm assuming slab on grade and stucco over foam. It's gonna have a different feeling when it hits the ground relative to everything else. So I would have liked to see it match a little bit better, but I don't know that there's anything in the design guidelines that can require that
Well,
necessarily.
that was part of the standpoint of trying to come up with a relative scale with a smaller structure. And that was a conscious decision to actually bring the entire building down closer to the ground so that it didn't compete with the main house. It resembled it, but didn't compete with it. And that was that's one of the ways we achieved that.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I think what I'm more reacting to as well, if apart from the elevation, is just that, the concrete foundation sits inboard of the exterior wall plane on this, and the existing house and the addition, it looks like they took some care doing the addition to, keep that defined bump out as part of it. But I think I'm okay with the slab on grade, but the relationship will be different. So, does anyone else have an opinion on that, or?
Yeah, Andrew, this is Joel. That was going to be my question. I really didn't, my question was gonna be, is it slab or do we have a crawl space? Cause I couldn't tell. But I'm pretty much slightly on board with what you're saying. And I don't know which way it cuts, frankly, but I think you make a good point.
Yeah, I think it tends to feel a lot more like new construction when it's detailed this way. But if no one else objects, I won't.
Yeah, but
We don't need to include.
it should look like compatible new construction. But I think it's just a matter of what is compatible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the scale of the house would be fine if it was on a crawl space. but
Is there anything in the in Armory Park's design guidelines about this issue? Do we know?
not, and I think it's pretty vague unless
No.
anyone else has found anything. It just says new construction need not copy existing structures, but should be compatible with surrounding historic buildings and streetscapes. So, that's kind of all I really see in there. So I think that's too vague of a description to really enforce something like that, but
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. What does everyone else think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, this is Joel again, I don't think it's not compatible, so I don't think, you know, we can require it, but I think it's, so, yeah, I don't think we should reject it because of this, but there you go, that's all.
okay,
Okay,
then
uh,
we can disregard it then.
Okay, so then we've got Jan.
Yeah, in terms of the foundation issue, I hear the point that's being made. I do appreciate that having it slab on grade reduces the scale and allows it to be perhaps a livable, compatible space, but not as tall. Also, I think for me, what makes it easier, besides the fact that distinguishes it, is the fact that it's essentially be at the rear of the house and it's fronting railroad. It's not fronting 17th with the house. So to me, that also provides more of a separation and distinction I'm comfortable with. The only other comment I have at this point is I agree with Ricky that there's enough going on in terms of the fencing and the gates that it would be good to have a minor review that with plans that show where things are going and what the intent is, especially because part of the fence that runs along railroad is kind of the side of the front of the house and the front yard. So kind of how that transition happens.
So that would be minor review for fence and gates.
Right. And then in terms of the, just as some of the other comments about the plans, I guess just making sure that the documentation that's been done on the contributing structure, just that is part of the final packet and gets recorded along with everything else. So there is a record.
Okay. Question. Do you have a picture of the multi-panel and single pane doors? Because we usually like to see those. Like what they will look like.
What's it look like? It hasn't been decided yet. They were more interested in making sure the material was.
They're shown in elevation though, as you intend.
It's just that's just a graphic representation. Again, that decision hasn't been made yet.
Maybe that could be part of the minor review
Okay.
and
I
just.
agree. And in doors, in all doors, right?
There's only two.
Yeah, okay.
So
The
what are you
windows and
wanting
doors.
to do? Are you wanting
Well,
the multi-pane where you have it shown and the single pane?
well, this is the front door to the main house. My thought is take the glass out and just have a multi-panel door go in. This is an 8-foot door, so obviously the scale would be different, but something similar to that. And then the back door is intended to be as just a clear glass French door, similar to that, which is on the addition.
It's a
Yeah.
single light? I
Yes.
can't- Okay. So that is what you have shown. Are you guys all
Yeah,
good
I
with
just-
that?
Go
Seems-
back to the plans.
But we normally see like an image of what that will look like. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
sometimes
That's just
Yeah,
a
that-
all of this situation, and then the back door.
Well, that is different than the front.
And then that's a single pane French door. So the back is probably accurate. I can change the graphic on the front and make it a 4-panel like the front house is. That's no big deal. Those are readily available.
So the south will have a 4-panel Is
Correct,
that right?
yes.
And the east will have a single pane,
Single, yeah,
single pane
light-
glass.
Yeah, single light French door.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds fine to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You'll never see that east side door anyway, so I think if the south matches, it's all good.
So we don't need that as part of the minor review.
I might
Um,
find out, we keep on coming back to this minor review thing. You realize we're talking about 25 feet of fencing. That's it.
Well, we can,
Yeah, but it's 25 feet of fencing that you don't have on your plans and you want to install.
And I can put it on the plan. Just
Well,
like,
we'd
No,
like
but-
to review it.
sir, we want to review it. That's that. So let's just leave it be. Okay, so Jan, what else do you have?
No, that was it for me. Thank you.
Okay, so who would be willing to make a motion?
I can do that.
Okay,
Should I review it with everyone first? It's like a bunch of points.
go ahead.
Okay. So I have windows to be wood with inset type detailing, doors to be wood and south as floor panel and east as single light French. The height shown is acceptable. The existing rear yard fencing to be replaced by 6-foot high wrought iron fencing and gates to match existing front yard and will be submitted as a minor review. Updated plans to indicate correct distance between the structures, the building wall height and height of openings, and updated plans to include ground mounted condensing unit on northeast corner not visible from street. Am I missing anything?
Documentation of demolition,
Say that again, Jan?
documentation of the contributing structure to be demolished.
To be submitted for minor review or?
No, just to be part of the the plan set, and maybe it is, but it's not what we saw, so.
Yeah, in the final plans,
Yeah.
that should be package, it should be included. There was something else.
I know, and I forgot if there was something
Hey,
as you,
the
oh, I
opening
know,
for The window, the 6'8" opening and the 8
she
foot.
said that, I
Oh, did
think,
you?
I thought.
Yeah, I didn't say exact dimensions. I'll let Jeff do that, but I just said it should be included on the plans.
that's fine. I already
Sorry.
know.
Oh, it was about the fencing. When you said fencing, I think you said rear, or maybe I misheard you. I would
I
just
said,
just
well, the
strike
existing,
that.
it's not, well, I guess it's
'Cause
the
it's-
existing.
I
guess
mean,
I could
there's the
say,
side, but then I also
Yeah.
hear it's a little unclear, so I think just leaving it fencing,
the existing
replacement
fencing will be
or-
replaced. Okay.
And did you mention that the number 4, the no landscape plans included or whatever it was?
No,
Just not
It's
part of
just-
this. It seems like
Yeah.
it's fair that it's not part of the review, whether we
yeah, I think that goes
mention it
without
or not.
saying.
Yeah.
But
Okay, and do we have the thing about the wall height? Did you mention that?
I just said the plans need to be updated to indicate building wall height and the height of the openings.
Right, and then the whole thing about the waiving of development zone standards for the maximum height, you mentioned that.
I
Yeah.
just said the height shown is acceptable, but I can say waive.
Yeah.
Existing
I think that's
12-foot high requirement.
okay. Well, I'm good with that. If everyone
Okay.
else does, if Savannah wants to move forward.
Yes.
Alright.
I'll second.
All right, well, on the matter of, let's see, SD 0923-00108 at 326 East 17th Street, the construction of a rear yard detached ADU. I move to recommend approval of the project as presented with the following conditions. That the windows to be wood with inset type detailing, that the doors to be wood with the south as a 4-panel and the east as a single light French door. That the height of the ADU shown is acceptable, and we would recommend waiving the existing 12-foot high requirement. That the existing fencing to be replaced by a 6-foot high wrought iron fencing and gates to match the existing front yard, but to be submitted as a minor review. That plans be updated to indicate correct distance between the structures, the building wall height, and the height of the new openings. That the plans be updated to include a ground-mounted condensing unit on the northeast corner, not visible from the street. And that the plan set include documentation of the structure for demolition.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay,
Is-
question, discussion and question. Gates were included in that minor review, right? Fencing gates?
Yes, please. If I missed gates,
And-
that is the
Correct.
intent.
And I guess my only comment is whether we should really be presupposing that it's all 6 foot, since we don't know for sure where they're all going. That's part of the height is part of the minor review.
Sorry, Jan,
that
did you have a second?
Yeah,
Joel seconded.
Okay,
yeah,
thank-
yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, Jan second.
as
No,
long
I
as you
get-
have a second, that's okay.
Yeah, there was a second, yeah.
Yeah.
What you could do is you could say 6-foot max. And the rest of it would be sorted out in the minor review.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
That's reasonable.
Okay, are both the mover and seconder okay with that, adding that?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, but that was Jan is the seconder, right?
No, Joel,
Joel, okay. Why did I? All right, I think I was talking at that time. Sorry. Okay, so Savannah and Joel. Okay, perfect. Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay,
I
let's
just
go
want to say
ahead.
thank you to the presenters. It was a good job.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and vote. You haven't voted yet. Okay, I'll go ahead and call the vote. Terry says aye. Ricky,
Aye.
Savannah,
Aye.
Joel,
I,
Andrew,
Aye.
Jan.
aye.
Okay, it passes 6-0. And so, sir, you know the next steps and so on, and you'll get that letter from Jody, or do you need her to review?
Can I ask a
Okay.
question real quick?
Sure.
On when you say that the documentation for the structure to be demolished to be included, what is that to be included in?
Final plans.
The structure is gonna be gone by the time these plans are approved. So I'm just trying to figure out, is that gonna confuse the inspector in the field looking for something that's not there?
I think my point at least is more to the city to ensure that they're part of the official record of this
Okay, so
project.
question to you, Jody, does this formal full submittal package, does that stay on record with the property? Because if it does, we're already there.
It does, it will be in the system because it's already uploaded there.
Jody, is there a way when we get a link, because I know we don't see previous iterations either, is there a way when we get a project that we can link other materials? Because we always get potentially we get a limited universe and then we find out there's other stuff around.
I think that's a question for process issues, so let's hold on to that question.
Okay, yeah, okay, it's independent of this, yeah.
Yeah,
I will tell you that with these conditions, obviously, there's going to be another version of these plans
Sure,
reflected. Yes,
There's
as long as
always-
that's part of the formal record, we should be. okay.
right.
Yeah,
there
so
is
let-
the
Yeah.
demo,
go ahead.
so there is the demo permit that's also on record already for the emergency demo, so they actually have to apply for that. So there's photos, and then both the building official and I took photos, because we went out physically to the site. So there is record.
I
of-
would say that they're probably already meeting that condition. We just wanted to reiterate it.
Or perhaps have them linked, I mean,
they're linked by the address.
okay, so the only missing link is us not knowing. Otherwise, it's all there.
No, it was the process. I mean, the process was followed for the emergency demolition. Yes, you were not alerted to it. It wasn't on the plans that it was previously approved, but per the UDC, the direction was followed. The chair was notified. John Burr, as the chair of the advisory board, was notified, and the Catherine Leonard for the SHPO was notified of the demolition.
So we weren't notified, but everybody else was.
Well, the thing is, I apologize because I usually notify you, like when I get the letters and stuff, I send those to you, like on different things. I was trying to find that email and I couldn't find it, and I don't know if it was because there were no attachments and I just didn't see it. So I will find that and send that to everyone, and I apologize.
So Jody, not to belabor, but one more thing, would it be reasonable on a plan we get, if it's annotated to say, you know, existing structure demolished, you know, approved for emergency demolition per permit XYZ? Because that's
Yes.
essentially what you're saying happened.
And Jeff, you can put that in there. That's not
It's
gonna.
already on there. I just haven't resubmitted with everything. I'm waiting to have all the connection. It's already on the site plan. I've already done that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is you're gonna get a letter and that's what you respond to, right? Because ours, you know, Jody may advise the director to say something different about our request for the demo stuff to be on the final plans.
Right, so I just stand down until I get the final from the director, and then that's what I execute. That's what everybody looks at again.
Right, right, yeah.
That's fine.
Alrighty, so we're good to go then. Thank you for your
All right.
presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, let's move on to item 4 then, which is public and institutional use in a development zone discussion. 4A is discussion on the use of public and institutional buildings as comparative properties in development zones. So do we have anything on this, Jody?
Well, my apologies, and we were discussing that right before the meeting. I failed to send out the email from Jan that had her comments on it, per your request. My apologies. So we did have a discussion about this last time at our last meeting, and Dan Bursick, who was the code guru but now is the planning administrator, was here to discuss it. There was a request. Jan requested that since I failed to send that out, that we leave this on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss, and it gives everybody a time to read through what I forwarded. I did forward it right before the meeting, but it wasn't adequate time for you guys to review it.
Okay, I think that's fine if everyone else is okay with that. Yes, okay. All right.
Unless you had some questions and still wanted to think about it, then we can also answer questions, but that's fine too.
Any questions, folks? Okay, let's move on to item 5 then, which is task force on inclusivity report recommendations. 5A, discussion on best practices for naming of city and county owned physical assets. There's no report. 6 is current issues for information discussion. 6A is minor reviews. Michael, will you update us on that, please?
Madam Chair, last time we had 3 minor reviews. Ricky helped us out with this. We had the first one at 620 South 3rd Avenue in Amway Park. This was a solar panel project. Ricky, you want to talk on that?
Oh, no, it was, you can't see it from the street and it's only 6 systems off of the roof, so it was approved without issue.
Okay.
The second one was a sign at 256 East Congress, downtown.
That one's a Che's Cuban, I think it's a Cuban food restaurant, and they're putting up their sign, but they are gonna leave, well, they're talking to the landlord about leaving the brackets in place, so if another business moves in the future, those same brackets can be used without additional holes being put in the building.
Good, yeah.
And the third one was 350 South Convent. This one, the review really didn't take place because the applicant was out of state and had no way of getting on the Zoom meeting. Then when he came back to town, I was trying to schedule it for next week. He still says that he's going to be out of town. So we're waiting for him whenever he's available. Then I will set this up. I will get Ricky and Grace from the Bible to do the review. Next,
That one, the door's already been installed
yes,
too. Yeah.
yes, that one. The problem is that the doors have been installed, and then the precedent that was submitted to us was outside the development zone. And both Ricky and Grace had some questions which only the applicant can answer. They also wanted to show similar doors that exist within the development. I have provided that information to the applicant. Moving along, I have 4 reviews that are scheduled, that I'm going to schedule for next week. Both Ricky and Joe have accepted to help with those. Joe will be happy with the 2 reviews in West University, and those ones are going to be on site. The first one will be at 707 East First Street for a solar panel. The second one will be at 505 East Fifth Street for a retaining wall that is collapsing. So I will do that with Joe. Then the third one, which will be a zoo, will be 330 South Scott, which is a door, the Temple of Music and Art. So Ricky is going to help on that one. And the last one will be 2900 North, Great North, in the front low path, which is the placement of doors and some work on the sidewalk to make it ADA accessible. Then this one will be assisted by Ricky. That's all I have for my review.
Okay, thank you. 6B is appeals.
We do not have any appeals at this point in time.
6C is zoning violations.
We are continuing to work on the zoning violations as it can. Right now, I'm working on the one on Euclid 819, I believe is North Euclid, the ID house, the fraternity. We changed all the doors and the roof. They did the work without coming through the review. They're ready to come to for review now. They will first go to West University, then they will come to you. So that is pending one that I have. And I'm also working on the 327 East 18th Street in Amber Park for a fence that was previously approved as a minor review, but the owner decided to put up something different. So once Amber Park reviews that, it will come to me.
Okay. All right. 6D is review process issues. Who would like to share a process issue?
Jan?
Well, haven't we already kind of talked about it? I mean, it
No,
just, it would,
I put you off to this item, so you brought it up, and I told you to bring it back to this item. So let me understand though, so you want other items? I'm just trying to understand that.
it's more about completeness for our review, kind of like when there are violations and we don't know they're violations, or we don't know that the material they submit is incomplete unless somebody's gone to the site. It just makes it more challenging. So having to guess about the status of a contributing structure that's being torn down. And it would just be helpful if there's even a note, or even if your email said, by the way, they've done this.
Understood.
So
I mean,
that's my thing, is just kind of, it's just helpful to know what's going on.
Right.
So
we just link to the permits. We can
Yeah.
get on PRO if you could just link us to the,
Yeah, that'd be
the demo
great.
permit number. That would work. If
That'd be
I
even
mean,
better.
that seems
Yeah.
easy.
Well, and in the past, we used to get, there seems to be a lot of selection of what actually is put in the area that we can see.
Yeah.
And we used to have a lot more, they'd say, well, that's not important to you. Well, maybe it is. Well, maybe we have a question, so.
Context, yeah.
and I don't know if it's more work for you or if you could just link us to that. I mean, I don't understand the step. It used to be horrible when everything had to be Xerox and sent to us, you know? So, it seems a lot easier now, but I don't know. So what is your thought on that, Jody?
So I would say that in some instances, it's not even clear to staff when there's work that's been done that we don't know about, that they don't have in the packet. So sometimes that's a little bit news to us, and it'll come out in the hearing, like the advisory board will note, oh, well, look, they did this, or they did something else that we weren't aware of, because it hadn't been reported as code enforcement or something along those lines. I will readily admit that I have, in some instances, forgot to call out that it's a zoning violation. And so that's something I'm trying to work on, so that it's there in the agenda that it's a zoning violation, so you know that. I would say on the garage, we did notify that we went through the process that's laid out in the UDC for the emergency demolition. I notified the chair and both chairs, and like I said, I notified the SHPO office. And it was inadvertent that it wasn't included on the plans as being previously approved. And I think it was probably because they were going through at the same time. So he was pushing for the new construction and the demo, they were working at the same time, and he was trying to get those through. So I think that was just an inadvertent mistake that didn't get noted.
Sure, I mean, even then it would be submitted for demolition or emergency demolition, you know, but something that, yeah.
I'm sending it to you now. I found it. It was a lot. I had to look it up a different way.
Thank
So
you.
I apologize for that. So I will send that.
And then what was the other one? I think I missed one, sorry. Okay. We don't have a lot of emergency demolitions. I've only had 2 since I've been here. And they've been recent.
I know we had that one in the barrio that we went and looked at. It was actually after the fact, but it was still, we went and looked at it, and then it was, I think, discussed in the plans.
I have a question relative to that, Jody. I'm not questioning the UDC enforcement or interpretation or anything, but what mechanisms are there for people who maybe intentionally let things fall into that state of repair so that they can utilize that clause? I'm not saying that happened here, but in a hypothetical, is there something from an enforcement perspective that can be done before that happens?
I think that then we would be working with code enforcement to address that issue. And it is, I would say, an open discussion, both times that I've had to deal with these emergency demolitions that I've had with the building official, because ultimately it's the building official who makes the call. To look at this. So if it is a, neglect issue, then it's something that we want to first address with code enforcement, because that's just a property owner letting it go to pot.
Well, but I mean, it would be interesting to go back. And I don't know if any of you remember the Cheney house, but it was in a terrible state, and the commission made a huge fuss, or plans review did, and I don't know if we had to go to mayor and council, but we called the woman and called her on it. We said it was neglect, and she had to deal with it. She sold it to people that wanted it and fixed it up, rehabilitated it. And so, I can't remember what allowed us to do that, but we clearly knew about it. I'm sorry, because I should have sent this to you in late March, but also it would have been, Jody might have mentioned it because we had a meeting after late March, but things get crazy and I get dozens of emails, and I apologize, but I'm not sure we could have done anything about it anyway. if, as Jody says, the zoning administrator makes the decision, or somebody makes the decision, not us.
Yeah,
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 I
definitely.
wasn't
And
trying to change the decision. It's more a process and just making our jobs a little easier. That's all. And Terry, I understand that things get crazy.
But it's like, at what point, Jody, if you saw one of these that came to a head, because, I mean, don't you frequently, maybe suspect that somebody, these things they don't go to pot on their own, you know what I mean? People ignore them because clearly someone has lived there in the other buildings and
Yeah.
so, yeah.
There is language in the UDC about and Ken has been talking about it during the full commission meetings, and there is language that says, the commission identifies it and staff tries to reach out to the property owner. I'm suspecting that the Cheney house that you mentioned previously was something where it was staff and the commission that reached out to the property owner to try to say, here's, heritage grants, or these are the types of grants that are available, or monies that are available for you to do this work, and et cetera, to kind of push her into that direction. Ultimately, it's, something that code enforcement can also get involved with, but, it tends to take a little bit of a negative turn if code enforcement is involved, and it could result in abatement, depending on the condition of it, but it's demolition by neglect is always a little bit tricky. I don't care where you are in any city, it's always tricky. There's some that have language in their code section that says, the city, if it's demolition by neglect, I wanna say San Diego had something like this, the city can put a lien on the property and fix the property and then, have the owner repay the city through that lien. But you have to also have a cooperative city attorney's office that's willing to do that. And in San Diego, they were never willing to do that, even though that language was on the books.
Yeah, and in this case, you have a relatively new property owner, which is the way this is often resolved too, is sell the property and then somebody is, unfairly burdened with that and has to deal with it.
The same with enforcement too, they're unfairly burdened with it. I mean, it is something, when they sell the property, if there's code enforcement action, and so you have demolition by neglect and there's code enforcement action on it with some potential fines associated with it. It is something that the realtor has to relay to the new property owner. That's just part of the parcel that they're supposed to be relaying that information, because if they're not, then I think that makes them liable.
There's that house where the front door was removed on East 17th, or I think it's 17th, but it might be 16th, where the front door was removed, one of two front doors, and stuccoed over. And it's changed hands like twice since we started talking about it, and somebody was going to come in, then they weren't, and
Yeah.
so it did this, yeah.
so Jody, you mentioned that if there are like neglect concerns regarding historic structures, that's something the commission can bring to code enforcement's attention. Is there any sort of like formal mechanism to do that, or do we just kind of reach out directly?
You as a citizen can go onto the code enforcement page for any property, and make friends and cite, say this is the complaint and stuff like that. We are not code enforcement. Michael, we are a small section, it's just Michael and I, but we do have a gentleman in our department who, when we get complaints, we ask him to go out and take a look. And so he is also not code enforcement, but he used to work in code enforcement, and so he knows all the code enforcement people, and he can kind of lay the path, so to speak, for them. So he'll go out and he'll make contact with the property owner, he'll talk to them and just let them know, you have this issue that's going on, it's neglect, or you're doing work without a permit or whatever. And then he also connects them with us and with code enforcement. So I today just got an email from somebody about something in Barrio and have requested him to go out there and take pictures of it and look, because sometimes people are like, oh my God, I've literally gotten this. Oh my God, they're tearing off the front porch. And I rushed out there and it was a front step that they were repairing. So we wanna make sure that it's actually truthful what's happening and it's not just somebody trying to be vindictive on their neighbor. But yeah, you can, the long story back to your actual question. You can actually just go onto the code enforcement page and you can ask them to go check out property and know what the issue is. It does take them sometimes.
Does that mean like actually filing a complaint? Because that's, I think, kind of what I'm trying to avoid is like building any resentment or bad blood, because these are likely cases that if they are enforced, they'll have to come back in front of the commission, so.
And it's something, you know, if you want to, like I said, it sounds like this is not city owned, it's a privately owned property. I mean, there is language in the code, I can send it to you after the meeting, I'll send it to everybody if you want me to. That basically speaks to the commission, kind of identifying these properties and then the commission working with staff, but again, there's a limited route, so it would be like staff, and then it could likely still end up with code enforcement.
Okay.
And it can take years, Andrew. I mean,
Yeah,
this fence, if we ever see it, will be like years. Honestly, there's a street frontage house, cute little house that's had 3 mini splits put on the side of it. I doubt if it had a minor review that allowed mini splits up at 8 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet high on a street frontage of a brick house. But, you know, honestly, there's been things just go in and sit. So I'm like, is it worth reporting anything? And you tell me. I mean, just I feel bad.
Yeah. Well, I think, Jody, if you can send that language to us on the commission's responsibilities on identifying issues, that would be helpful. And then maybe that's something as a larger group we circle back on at some point to see if maybe that warrants some discussion in the larger commission on how that process works.
And like I said, Ken already has addressed it. Ken is addressing it with city-owned buildings and landscapes, but he's already kind of opened that up. It is an item on the agenda. I think it's a regular item on the agenda now.
Yes,
Okay, I missed that.
and we could make it more general if people wanted to bring up other questions, because right now it's city owned. So.
Terry, this is, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Normally what I find in these situations like this, we mentioned some like mini splits that go up and all that stuff. I find that the new homeowner often is just not aware that they have to go through the historical review. And I'm wondering if the commission can, as part of its educational function, try to make new homeowners, new purchasers of homes in these historic zones aware that they have to do it. I think people are generally probably willing to do it, but they just didn't know they had to. And I wonder if we can somehow make them aware or take that on as a, or find out at least what the duty of a realtor is to make them aware of that.
Well, if you're on that committee or you want to bring it up to them, that's great. I mean, but I think that, you know, or is there some city process? I mean, what do realtors have to disclose? I mean, you know, a lot of realtors don't disclose some of the things.
They're all over the board.
Well, I mean, so with the historic zones though, I mean, the zoning is there, it's got the H, so it's not like, and I'm talking specifically about the HPZs or the HL, the zoning, it's got an overlay on it. And the realtor may tell the property owner, but the property owner may not realize what that is. And I do think though, and I thought at one time, some of the districts had like kind of a welcoming committee or a packet. Like I thought that's Armory Park had that, where they would go out for new homeowners and provide that to kind of alert them to be in an HPC. Ricky has her hand up.
Go ahead, Ricky, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like something to me that is kind of along the lines that Jody was saying, that the education committee would have to partner with those neighborhoods that have the overlays. And I think that's really because, like, as a commission, it would be really hard for us to track these people that are moving. But I feel like the advisory boards really know who is in their neighborhood and who's moving. And they would be able to better approach those people and say, hey, just so you know, like, whether or not your realtor told you, if you're making any changes, you have to go through this review.
Well, I mean, that's certainly something that one of us can bring up at the next meeting. Or, you know, frankly, email Jeff Elmond and JJ Lamb, because this is the first time in years of me asking for the list of the advisory board members and so forth did I ever receive it from Jody. I mean, literally years I've asked for this. No one could ever give it to me. And so, I mean, we were in touch with them because a lot of them did, you know, attend the camp training. So, you know, I think we have a good relationship with a lot of the advisory boards insofar as they know who we are and so forth, you know. I think that's a great thing. And someone should bring that up as an action item for them to consider. You know, right now they're just trying to get the internal booklet out and copied before their funds are expended by the end of June, you know, or not usable. So I mean, it's something they can take up after June, certainly. So good idea. Or training for realtors, that would be great.
We did years ago, do a session with the realtors through the Hogan School of Real Estate. And I recently had another gentleman, a local historian, I didn't know him, but you may know him, Jim Turner.
Yeah.
He approached me because he had been approached by Hogan to kind of do a regular session. So he's putting together a kind of session on like the HPZs and historic, specifically for realtors to kind of help them too. So there's also that kind of working in the background.
Are you going to review that to make sure that it's all accurate?
He's asking me for information. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So,
yeah.
Good guy. That's what he does. I don't know that he's ever been on the commission or, you know, or on an advisory board or a PRS. So yeah, let's just be sure he's giving them good general information.
And isn't that part of the reason for having a realtor as part of the commission? I mean, it kind of goes both ways, that there's a specific realtor slot.
Yeah, and we could ask Tim about it. We could ask Tim to somebody remind me to do that, and I will let him know. And maybe he knows Jim Turner, you know, or would be part of this realtor group because they, you know, he works for a big real estate firm. So anyway, alrighty. Anything else under this?
Yeah, as a side note, I had Carla send it out, but I sent a link to Carla sent a link for me to all the commissioners with the relevancy guidebook. She is the same lady that's gonna be doing, I think, the opening plenary at the Arizona Preservation Foundation conference in Prescott. But I went to a webinar that they had through the APA Urban and Preservation Division. And it's a really good guidebook. The guidebook was free. I sent the link out to you guys, or Carlos. I definitely, if you haven't had a chance, look at it. It's really interesting. It's easier to send to you guys, but I'm also gonna send it to the advisory boards when I get a moment. So they have that link, but I just wanna plug that.
Okay, thank you.
Jody, is that session worth going back and looking at? I couldn't attend it. I had hoped to, and I'm glad you sent the guidebook out.
I mean, well, one, you
I'll
know,
go look, yeah,
you get AP, you get
I know.
ASC credits for it, and it was free.
yeah,
So I'm always pushing for that, but yeah, it was interesting.
yeah, relevancy certainly caught my ear, so yeah. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 7, which is summary of public comments. Were any received by the deadline?
We did not receive any.
Thank you. Item 8 is future agenda items. The next meeting is May 23rd. What do you have for us, Jody?
So I'm juggling around just a little bit. We could have the Tucson house come forward. But he's wanting to be put off for a little bit. We also are working on the Capstone properties. So they, are putting their stuff together, so it's just probably a short period of time for them to make it. We have a number of properties that are coming up for review in West University. So they probably won't be at your 23rd meeting?
Yeah.
But they will likely be coming to you soonish.
Okay, and so if we have Tucson House and Capstone, Joel, you have to recuse from Capstone?
You're on mute, Joel.
Yes, whenever the capstone comes up, I'll have to recuse, so we, you know, be aware of that when we schedule stuff, thanks.
Right, and nobody has to recuse from Tucson House, right?
Savannah?
I would.
Okay, Savannah
Sorry.
does? Okay, 'cause that's,
So Capstone is now gonna be, for the most part, 2 projects. There'll be the relocated houses, which will be going to 2 lots, you guys know. And then there'll be the new construction that's gonna happen along Euclid and Speedway. I guess on a conservative basis, Joel will also recuse for the new construction.
but why?
Well, because
Because
there's,
he's benefited by the houses moving and stuff being built.
Okay.
Seems kind of awkward to, no offense, Joel.
No, I take no
Yeah.
offense, although at that point, I think Jody's right, that the
Deed's
Project.
been done.
completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It just,
Yeah.
I was just asking because we always have to ask later and then it takes more time. You
Yeah.
know, so that we just need to know that when planning and stuff, so.
so that'll also be coming to you, the new construction too, they're working on that, so that'll be coming along.
Okay,
I think that's about it, and then the discussion on the development zone height and such comparative properties.
okay, that's discussion on number 4, okay. All right, so I guess if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 2:19. And I'll watch for you to send the draft LAR. But it's so funny how we still manage to chat a while, you know, when we have one case.
But this was good discussion.
No, it was great discussion, and I'm glad we had a little time to get into some of the things when normally we wouldn't have time. So, yeah, thank you. And
Thanks,
then
all.
everyone's got the email from that Jody sent with Jan's info, right? To look at for number 4.
Yes.